the line, "When the warrior returns from the battle afar."
You'll recognize this melody. It was a commonly reused tune after its publication in London in 1779, the same year that Francis Scott Key was born.
In the conflict resistless each toil they endured, till their foes fled dismayed at the war's desolation. And pale beamed the crescent, its splendor obscured by the light of the star-spangled flag of our nation. In the full tide of song let his fame roll along, to the feast-flowing board let us gratefully throng. Where mixed with the olive the laurel shall wave, and form a bright wreath for the brows of the brave. Where mixed with the olive the laurel shall wave, and form a bright wreath for the brows of the brave. Then welcome the hero returned from afar, to the home and the country he nobly defended. Let the thanks due to valor now gladden his ear, and loud be the joy from the perils are ended. In the full tide of song let his fame roll along, to the feast-flowing board let us gratefully throng. Where mixed with the olive the laurel shall wave, and form a bright wreath for the brows of the brave. Where mixed with the olive the laurel shall wave, and form a bright wreath for the brows of the brave.
Thank you. Good evening. It's always a very, one of the few amazing aspects of the institution of the Senate is some of the traditions that we're able to uphold and to alter and change over time. And so this year, being the 250th anniversary of the founding of the country, we thought it only appropriate to have our state archivist, who has spent so much time really deeply immersed in the history of this building, this space, and protecting Maryland history for future generations. And so this is always one of the best evenings of holding on to this tradition of having the longest operating state capitol in the entire country. It is largely, we would say, because of this ceremony that happens on an annual basis every year, that we have an actual Senate session in the chamber to make it the continuously operating space within the building. So thank you all for being here. I will officially call this session to order. We are very pleased if we could have our Reverend. Oh, yes. Oh, you're right. Thank you very much. If you could please join us for our invocation. Members, please rise for the invocation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let us pray. God of truth and wisdom, we give you thanks this day for creating humanity with both reason and imagination, the capacity to see the world as it is, and the courage to envision what might yet become. On this celebration of George Washington's birthday, we honor not only a founding figure, but the ongoing work of forming a nation. We give thanks for all who labored, hoped, and sacrificed in the birth of this country, including those whose courage and service were long overlooked, yet essential to the promise of liberty. Help us to see one another as you see us, bearing dignity, shaped by history, bound together in a shared future. Where the story we tell has been incomplete, grant us humility to listen. Where freedom has been unevenly distributed, grant us resolve to repair. Give to those who serve in this chamber clarity of mind and generosity of spirit. Grant them courage when the work is hard, patience when progress is slow, and stamina to labor not only for what is expedient, but for what is just. May we continue to imagine a better world, and then together do the faithful work of building it. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Holder, for another wonderful invocation. I believe we will be asking David and Ginger Hildebrand to please join us again for a toast for General Washington.
So during that horrible cold winter and spring of 1777 and 1778 at Valley Forge, Francis Hopkinson became inspired to compose a song for George Washington. He would write several others later. Here are the words and the music, though, that he came up with to encourage faith in Washington as a military leader.
Francis Hopkinson was a signer of the Declaration of Independence and an amateur musician and composer.
'Tis Washington's health, fill a bumper all round, for he is our glory and pride. Our arms shall in battle with conquest be crowned, whilst virtue and he's on our side. Our arms shall in battle with conquest be crowned, whilst virtue and he's on our side. 'Tis Washington's health, loud cannon should roar, and trumpets the truth should proclaim. There cannot be found, search all the world o'er, his equal in virtue and fame. Cannot be found, search all the world o'er, his equal in virtue and fame. Washington's health, our hero to bless. May heaven look graciously down. Oh, long may he live, our hearts to possess, and freedom still call him her own. Oh, long may he live, our hearts to possess, and freedom still call him her own.
Thank you again for your wonderful rendition and to get us into the spirit of today. This evening, we often select a member for this particular presentation, but every once in a while, we have the opportunity to have a special guest join us. And this, again, being the 250th anniversary of the country, we thought was most appropriate to have Elaine Rice Bachman, who many of you all know very well. She has been the Maryland State Archivist since 2021. She's the first woman to serve in this role, and we had worked together for many years on a variety of issues. Many of you all may not know that she she graduated from Indiana University, so she is a Hoosier at heart. She did her thesis on Henry DuPont's role as the chair of Jacqueline Kennedy's Fine Arts Committee, and led to her publication of Designing Camelot, the Kennedy White House Restoration. So she has been deeply immersed in American history and the role of places and spaces to transform people's understanding for many, many years. And so it is my pleasure, and without further ado, to introduce for tonight's remarks, Elaine Rice Bachman.
Put this away. Thank you, President Ferguson. It is a profound honor to stand in this chamber with you and to address the Maryland Senate in honor of George Washington's birthday in the 250th year since America's Declaration of Independence. 250 years ago today, in February 1776, General Washington was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, meeting with his Council of War and contemplating an attack on Boston, and being advised that in no way did he have the number of soldiers to make a serious ground invasion. The report from the meeting that day states that the regiments of the United Colonies in these encampments amounted to 8,797 men fit for duty, besides officers, and 1,450 men on command. Our stock of powder was so small as to afford but little aid from cannon and mortars, and therefore that small arms must be our principal reliance in any event till a supply could be obtained. Ultimately, aided by the famed arrival of the guns of Ticonderoga that were then traveling over water, land, and mountains from New York, Washington was able to fortify Dorchester Heights and force the British evacuation of the city. But that early victory would be followed by many defeats, including a near total annihilation in Brooklyn that August. If not for the Maryland troops, the renowned Maryland 400, that took the brunt of British fire while enabling Washington and nearly 9,000 other soldiers to escape to Manhattan, the war might have ended right then and there. But that is a story for another day, specifically August 22nd, when I hope some of you will join the Maryland 250 Commission in Brooklyn at the Old Stone House as we commemorate 250 years since Maryland's Old Line achieved their immortality at the Battle of Brooklyn. As that battle proved, every man counted. And in 1776, when enlistments in the Continental Army lasted only 1 year, General Washington faced a profound challenge in maintaining adequate levels of troops, let alone well-trained troops, to continue waging war against the elite forces of Great Britain. Convincing men to stay in the Army with poor rations, inadequate clothing and shelter, and no guarantee of solid pay was not easy. Even those who joined with a fervor for liberty could be discouraged by the uncertainty of the situation, and Washington often found himself appealing for loyalty to the cause to men eager to return home and take up their previous lives. Recruitment of new troops was critical to any chance of success. Washington was particularly panicked by the methods of the British Army, who, waging war thousands of miles from home and on unfamiliar terrain, also needed reinforcements. In November 1775, Virginia's royal governor, John Murray, Lord Dunmore, issued a proclamation that offered freedom to indentured servants and black people enslaved by rebels if they fought for the British. Washington learned of this at his headquarters in Cambridge on December 2nd and was greatly agitated, as indicated in his letter to Joseph Reed on December 15th, where he refers to Lord Dunmore as that arch traitor to the rights of humanity. He uses an analogy he'd use often in letters describing Dunmore's plan, saying his army will increase as a snowball by rolling and faster, if some expedient cannot be hit upon to convince the slaves and servants of the impotency of his designs. It's no stretch of our modern imaginations, given all the scholarship of Washington's enslavement of hundreds of humans throughout his life, that the Virginian must have been shocked by the idea of black troops serving alongside white men. Even more outrageous must have been the idea of arming a black man, either free or enslaved, with a weapon. Prior to the issuance of Dunmore's proclamation, it was clear that Washington was not considering black men as a way to grow his ranks. He issued instructions from Cambridge that the Army was not to enlist any deserter from the British Army, nor any stroller, Negro, or vagabond, neither Negroes, boys unable to bear arms, nor old men unfit to endure the fatigues of the campaign. Individual states in raising regiments also adopted policies prohibiting Negroes from enlisting, particularly noting the prohibition of the enslaved. Existing records do indicate that free blacks served in regiments throughout the colonies, although in small numbers that are difficult to define, and were relegated to non-combat roles such as wagon drivers or manual laborers. But Dunmore's initiative and the prospect of armed enslaved men fighting for the British so alarmed Washington that he reversed course, and on December 30th issued general orders stating that as the general is informed that numbers of free Negroes are desirous of enlisting, he gives leave to the recruiting officers to entertain them and promises to lay the matter before Congress, who he doubts will not approve of it. Congress did quickly approve, and the active recruitment of African Americans, both free, black, and enslaved, began in earnest. The author, Benjamin Quarles, in his groundbreaking book of 1961, the first to comprehensively document Black patriots, wrote, "When manpower needs became acute, whether in the volunteer forces, the militia, or the Continental troops, hesitancies and fears were put into the background and the Negro was mustered in." Rhode Island was the only state to raise an all-black regiment, albeit with white officers in command. Across all the states, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Connecticut are known to have listed the highest number of black soldiers, and overall, it is believed that at least 5,000 black soldiers served throughout the war. They were fighting for the liberty of a country in which, even though some of them were free, as black people, they were denied the same rights as colonists, nor were they guaranteed the benefits that might come with independence from Britain. Where does Maryland fit into this history? The exact number of Maryland's black soldiers is unknown, due to a variety of factors, including the nature of information collected on muster rolls and the paucity of evidence found in pension records submitted decades after the war. Confirmed numbers across all available muster rolls indicate about 150 black soldiers served from Maryland. We might have known the names of many more had a 1781 legislative effort to raise an all-black regiment not failed in the House of Delegates. A proposal to raise a regiment of 750 enslaved soldiers in Maryland began to circulate in the Maryland General Assembly in the spring of 1781, as the state struggled to rebuild the Army after significant troop losses the previous summer at the Battle of Camden. One supporter of the plan, Major Edward Giles, wrote to his friend, Colonel Otto Holland Williams, on June 1st, "There is some talk of raising a black regiment. I wish the regiment could be raised. I am of the opinion that the blacks will make excellent soldiers. Indeed, experience proves it. As to the danger of training them to arms, 'tis the child of a distempered imagination. There are some people who are forever frightening themselves with the bugbears of their own creation." The text of the proposed law has not survived, but it was described by Charles Carroll of Carrollton to his father, Charles Carroll of Annapolis, on June 4th, 1781. Clearly believing it would imminently pass, he wrote, "We shall pass a law tomorrow for raising a Negro regiment. Every person having 6 Negroes between 14 and 45 years of age may have a Negro taken from him, if the Negro should be willing to enlist for the duration of the war. The owner is to receive a certificate for 100 pounds specie. This law appears to be unequal and consequently oppressive to a particular set of men." I'll refrain from further quoting from this letter, which uses pejoratives of the period. But I will summarize that the particular set of men that Carroll referred to as being oppressed by this law were Maryland slaveholders, who would not be compensated enough, in Carroll's view, by the potential loss of their property when an enslaved man was conscripted into this regiment. Although not recorded, the bill appears to have passed the Senate and was introduced in the House on June 5th, where support quickly collapsed. Although no record of debate survives, the concerns Carroll raised about his own property and the large numbers of members of the House who were also enslavers likely influenced the vote. It was rejected 27-19, and by July, the proposal was dead. So what we know of the service of Maryland's black patriots comes from the scant historical records that exist. One of those records, a pension application from 1818, documents the service of a free black man from Caroline County, Thomas Kearney, who served in the Continental Army from 1777 until 1783. He was promoted to the rank of corporal, the lowest ranking non-commissioned officer in the 7th Maryland. One of the witnesses to his service documented in his pension application is Major General Perry Benson, who was carried to safety by Kearney after being wounded in South Carolina in 1781. It was Kearney's life story that compelled Stephen Xavier Lee, an author, artist, and independent historian, to bring a proposal to the State House Trust to erect a monument honoring Black patriots at the State House. The Trust unanimously approved the proposal in 2023, and for the past 2 years, planning has been underway for the Maryland Monument to honor Black patriots who served in the American Revolutionary War. It will be unveiled on August 29th, 2026, and will perhaps be Maryland's most prominent and enduring contribution to America's 250th anniversary commemoration. I'd like to take a moment to publicly acknowledge President Ferguson and the State House Trust, including Speaker Emerita Adrienne Jones, for the commitment to this monument, and also recognize Senator Malcolm Augustine for his service on the Black Patriot Monument Advisory Committee. The advisory committee selected the artist, Brantley Cadet, as well as Mr. Cadet's concept for the monument, and continues to be engaged with him as well as with the Department of General Services, the Maryland State Arts Council, and the Archives Commission on Artistic Property, who are managing the project. On May 15th, 1783, 7 months before General George Washington walked into this room and resigned his commission as Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army, the Maryland Gazette published an anonymous essay pointing out the hypocrisy of a revolution based on the principles of liberty and all men being equal when so many people in the country remained enslaved. It reads in part, "Freedom is the object of our humble address. In the language of your humble addresses to the inexorable throne of Britain, permit us to humbly address you. Liberty is our claim. Reverence for our great Creator, principles of humanity, and the dictates of common sense all convince us that we have an indubitable right to liberty. Has not the wisdom of America solemnly declared it? Attend to your own declarations. These truths are self-evident. All men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Though our bodies differ in color from yours, yet our souls are similar in a desire for freedom." The essay was signed Vox Africanorum, Latin for Voice of the Africans. Can there be a greater expression of the paradox that is the American Revolution? Can there be a more eloquent justification, should anyone demand one, for the inclusion of honoring Black patriots alongside George Washington, the signers, and all those generals whose portraits hang in the room next door when we remember Maryland's role in the Revolutionary War? In her brilliant book, Standing in Their Own Light, African American Patriots in the American Revolution, author Judith Van Buskirk asserts that those free Black and formerly enslaved people who stepped up to fight for American liberty are the founders of the modern civil rights movement, that it was their grandchildren who fought for abolition in the 19th century, and their grandchildren's grandchildren who fought the battles against Jim Crow in the 20th century, and their distant descendants who today fight to maintain equality for all Americans. A monument doesn't solve any of the problems our society collectively faces in maintaining the promises of America's founding. But I would offer that it does provide an opportunity to more broadly consider what reparations can look like. Not the monetary reparations that draw so much attention and controversy, but the idea of reparative history. Are we taking anything away from our reverence for George Washington by placing a statue of a Black soldier representing a person that he might not fully have supported or at least never fully recognized in his lifetime within view of this very room? Does our knowledge of Washington's own history as a slaveholder mean we shouldn't honor him as the leader of the Continental Army, without whom it's very likely the war might not have ended in our favor? Of course not. And by broadening the scope through which we view American history and the people whose lives are contained within it, we provide representation for people today to see themselves in that historical arc, and that matters. It's why one of President Ferguson's first acts was to install the portrait of Verda Welcome in the Senate chamber. It's why we have statues of Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass across the hall in the old House of Delegates chamber, and why the memorial to Thurgood Marshall was cited in relation to the statue of Roger Burke Tawney, a statue removed in 2017 by the State House Trust, which remains in the care and custody of the Maryland Commission on Artistic Property. History will judge us for that action, as we have judged those who come before us, who created their own monuments for reasons we may not fully understand. More poetically, in the words of the musical Hamilton, history has its eyes on you. Let us endeavor to be seen by those who come after us, to have strived to remember and honor the truth of all our history. Let the eyes of history see that we did all within our power to fulfill the promise of the American Revolution. Thank you.
Could recognize the President Pro Tem. Without objection, certainly, Senator, we will journalize the remarks for today's session. And thank you, Madam State Archivist. Early on, she asked, do you mind if I pick the topic myself? I have something I want to say. And this is it. And I think it just was such an excellent rendition of the complexity that is the traditions and the institutions that we are now all a part of. And just thank you so much for those thoughtful and thought-provoking remarks about General Washington and the slaves who were the enslaved people who were freed and fought for the revolution, a revolution that we are still trying to fight today. Recognizing the Majority Leader. Without objection, so ordered. Thank you all.